Hello there, people, and welcome to yet another edition of Daggerfall. We're nearing the end of this terrible, terrible book series, but alas, we still have at least one more part. And that part is today! Yes, let's just load it up really quickly because we're in the middle of reading the Real Barenziah. We've read 4 parts, but we have 6 more, and I'm hoping to marathon at least some of it today. Get through it, that way I get sane. We have everything on hand, so it's not even like we need to rely on the library anymore. We just have to read all these books, and then get out of here. Ain't that good? I like the idea. Okie dokie, so we were on part 4. Well, part 5. And we also should get back to like a store, if I can. What's the nearest store? Because I want to sell the stuff. We only have the Real Barenziah in my hands now because, like I said, we finished the library. We don't care about any library books whatsoever. They could have... The library could be burned down for all I care. Yeah. I'm a positive folk. Oh god, I'm knocking things over. The earth is shaken. Everything is here destroyed. And we're moving across the world at 2 miles an hour because I forgot I had a horse. And meanwhile, out in the hot haze, look at that guy. Just like slowly moving across the world. I feel like a mark on my monitor. Let me see if I can try to get rid of it quickly. I just noticed it, so... Oh boy, of course you noticed it while doing this. Let's see here, let's take a giant towel and just wipe it. Probably a bad idea, but one I'm gonna do. Okay, I think actually that worked. Hooray! Solution that actually did something properly. Okay, now we gotta figure out where in God's name am I going, because we need to find that general market over there. Why? Because we need to sell stuff. Very important that we sell stuff for crack money. Very important. Go north. North. And here is apparently a shop. Hooray! It said store and it actually was a store. He didn't lie to me. And look at all the stuff I've already seen. Why am I even looking at books? Like, seriously, am I just wanting to find that German translation? Well, since I'm here, I might as well look, right? That's all I'll do. We're here. So we'll skim through it all quickly. Takes a few seconds. Lot less time than it would take to. Actually, yeah, I'll do anything useful. Buy a random lantern. Let's see. I want to equip my sword. And now I just broke the tats. Okay, so we have stuff to sell. Specifically, the Real Barenziah. Sure, Volume 3. Volume 2. This will make it easier to scroll through them too, because that means none of the stuff from last time. And Volume 1. Make sure 3, 1, and 2. A little bit more change. And a little easier to scroll through everything. I win both ways. Anyway, we read Chapter 4, so now on to Chapter 5. Last time around, she basically ditched Straw and all those people and ended up going with Samakias. I think that's kind of where we left off. Barenziah felt the weight of sorrow for several days, but by the 3rd day out, her spirits had begun to rise a bit. She found that she enjoyed being on the road again, although she missed Straw's companionship more than she would have thought. They were escorted by a troop of Red Guard knights, with whom she felt comfortable. although these were court disciplined than the guards of the merchant caravans. They were cordial but respectful towards her, despite attempts to flirt with the men. Symmachus scolded her privately, saying that a queen must maintain a royal dignity at all times. You mean I'm never to have any fun? Not with such as these. They are beneath you. Graciousness is not to be desired in those in authority. Familiarity is not. You will remain chaste and modest while you are in the imperial city. Barenziah scowled up her face. I might as well be back in Blackmoor. Elves are promiscuous by nature. Everyone says so. Everyone is wrong then. Some are, some aren't. The Emperor and I expect you to show both discrimination and discretion. Let me remind you that you will hold the throne on Mournhold, not by the right of blood, but solely at the pleasure of Tiber Septim. If he judges you unsuitable, your reign will end ere it begins. It requires intelligence, obedience, discretion, and total loyalty in all his appointees. He favors chastity and modesty in women. I suggest you model your deportment after Drillane. I'd like for her to be back in Blackmoor, Barenziah said indignantly. That's not an option. If you are no use to Tiber Septim, he will see to it that you are no use to his enemies either, Symmachus said coldly. If you would keep your head upon your shoulders, take warning. Let me add that the power often pleasures other than those of carnality and low company. He spoke of art, literature, drama, music, and grand balls. Barenziah listened with its interest spurred by his threats. After asked if she might continue her study of spellcasting while in the Imperial City. Symmachus seemed pleased and promised to arrange it. Pleased with this, she then said that she noted that 3 of their knights were women, and asked if she might train a little in combat with them, just for the sake of exercise. Symmachus looked less than pleased, but agreed she might, although only with the women. The late winter weather held fair but cold for their journey, so they traveled quickly over firm roads. On the last day, spring seemed to come at last, but there was thaw, and the road grew sloppy underfoot, and everywhere one could faintly hear the sound of water trickling and dripping. They came to the great bridge that crossed into Imperial City at sunset. A rosy glow turned all the stark white marble buildings a delicate pink. It all looked very new and grand and immaculate. A broad avenue led straight north to the palace. There was a crowd of people of all sorts in the streets. Lights winked out in the shops and on in the inns as dusk fell, and the stars came out one by one. Even the side streets were broad and brightly lit. Near the palace, the towers of a grand mage guild reared to the east, while westward the stained glass windows of a great temple glittered. Symmachus had an apartment in a great house 2 blocks from the palace. Past the temple of the One, he says they pass it, an ancient Nordic cult, which Tiber Septim had revived. He said that Barenziah would be expected to become a member, should she prove acceptable to the Emperor. Wait, what? Okay, so in order to become Queen of Morrowind, you're going to need to join a random cult of Nords. Makes total sense. Totally the most practical, logical thing we could do, right? Symmachus' apartment was very grand, although little to Barenziah's liking. The walls and furnishings were stark white, relieved only by torches of bright gold, the floors of gleaming black marble. Barenziah's eyes ached for color and shadow. In the morning, Symmachus and Drillane escorted her to the Imperial Palace. Barenziah noted that everyone they met greeted Symmachus with a deferential respect, which in some cases bordered on obsequiousness. He took it quite for granted. She and Symmachus were ushered directly into the Imperial presence. Morning sun flooded the small room through a large window with tiny panes, watching over the breakfast table and the single man who sat there, dark against the light. He leapt to his feet as they entered and hurried towards them. "Ah, Symmachus, my friend, I welcome thy return most gladly." His hands touched Symmachus' shoulders briefly, fondly, interrupting the deep bow the elf had begun. Barenziah curtsied as Tiber Septim turned to her. "Barenziah, my naughty little runaway, how do you, child? Here, let me have a look at you. Why, Symmachus, she's charming, absolutely charming. Why have you hidden her from all these years from us? Is the light too much? Shall I draw the hangings?" "Yes, of course." He waved aside Symmachus' protests and drew the curtains himself, not troubling to summon a servant. "You'll pardon me for this discourtesy to my guests. I've much to think of, but that's scant excuse for hospitality. Ah, pray, join me. There's some excellent fruit from the Black Marsh." They settled themselves at the table. Barenziah was astonished. Tiber Septim was nothing like the grim gray giant warrior she'd pictured. He was only of middle height, half a head shorter than tall Symmachus, although he was well knit of figure and lithe in movement. He had a winning smile, bright, indeed piercing, blue eyes, and a full head of stark white hair above a lined and weathered face. He might have been any age from 40 to 60. He pressed food and drink upon them, then repeated his question. Why had she left her home? Had the guardians been unkind to her? "No, Excellency," Barenziah replied. "In truth, no, although I fancied so at times." Symmachus had made up a lie for her, and Barenziah told it, although with misgivings. The stable boy, Straw, had convinced her that her guardians, unable to find a suitable husband for her, meant to sell her as a concubine in Rehad. And when a red guard had indeed come, she had panicked and fled with him. Tiber Septim seemed fascinated and listened raptively as she provided details of her life as a merchant caravan guard. "Why, 'tis like a ballad," he said. "By the one, I'll have the court bards say to music. What charming boy you must have made." Symmachus said, Barenziah stopped in some confusion. "He said, well, that I no longer look much like a boy. I have grown in the past few months." She lowered a gaze in what she hoped looked like maiden modesty. "He's a very discerning fellow, is my friend Symmachus. I know I've been a very foolish girl. I must crave thy pardon, and that of my kind guardians. I realized that some time ago, but I was too ashamed to go home. And I do long for Morrowind. My soul pines for my own country. My dear, you shall go home, I promise you. But I pray you remain with us a little longer, that you may prepare yourself for the stern task which I shall charge you." Barenziah gazed at him earnestly, heart beating hard. It was all working just as Symmachus had said it would. She felt a warm flush of gratitude toward him, but was careful to keep her attention focused on the Emperor. "I am honored, Excellency, and I wish most earnestly to serve you and this great empire you have forged in any way I can." It was the politic thing to say, but Barenziah really meant it. She was awed by the magnificence of the city, and the discipline and order everywhere evident, and was excited at the prospect of becoming a part of it all. Plus, she felt quite drawn to Tiber Septim. After a few days, Symmachus left for Mournhold to take up his duties as governor until Barenziah was ready to assume the throne, after which he would become her prime minister. Barenziah, with Drolane as chaperone, took up residence in a suite at the palace. Several tutors were provided for her. During this time, she became deeply interested in magical arts, but she found the study of history and politics not at all to her taste. On occasion, she met Tiber Septim in the palace gardens, and he would unfailingly inquire politely as to her progress, and chide her, although with a smile, over her disinterest in matters of state. However, He was always happy to instruct her on the fine points of magic. He could make even history and politics seem interesting after all. They're people, child, not dry facts in a dusty book, he said. As her understanding broadened, the discussions became longer, deeper, and more frequent. He spoke to her of his vision of a united Tamriel, each race separate and distinct, but with shared ideals and goals, all contributing to the common weal. Some things are universal, shared by all sentient folk of goodwill, he said. So the one teaches us. We must unite against the malicious and the brutish, the miscreated, the orcs, trolls, goblins, and other worse creatures, not strive one against one another. His blue eyes would light as he stared into his dream, and Barenziah was delighted just to sit and listen to him. If he drew close to her, the side of her body next to him would glow as if he was over a fire. If their hands met, she would tingle all over as his body were charged with a small shock spell. One day, quite unexpectedly, he took her face in his hands and kissed her gently on the mouth. She drew back after a few moments, astonished by the violence of her feelings, and he apologized instantly. I didn't mean to do that. It's just, you are so beautiful, my dear. So very beautiful. He was looking at her with a hopeless yearning in her face. She turned away, tears streaming down her face. Are you angry with me? Talk to me. Barenziah shook her head. I could never be angry with you. I love you. I know it's wrong, but I can't help it. I have a wife, he said. She is a good and virtuous woman, and the mother of my children. I could never put her aside, yet there is nothing between us. No sharing of the spirit. She would have me be other than what I am. I am the most powerful man in all Tamriel, and Barenziah. I think I am the most lonely as well. Power, he said with contempt. I trade a goodly share of it for youth and love if the gods allowed it. But you are strong and vigorous and vital, more than any other man I've known. He shook his head. Today, perhaps. Yet I am less than I was yesterday. Last year, 10 years ago. I feel the sting of my mortality, and it is painful. If I can ease thy pain, let me do so. Barenziah moved towards him, hands outstretched. I would not take thy innocence from thee. I'm not that innocent. How so? Tiber Septim's voice agreed harshly, his brow knitted. Barenziah's mouth went dry. What had she done? There was straw, she faltered. I was lonely too. Am lonely. And not so strong as you. She cast her eyes down in embarrassment. I'm not worthy. No, not so, Barenziah. It cannot last for long. Yep, have a duty in Mournhold. I must tend my empire. Shall we share what we may, and pray the one forgives us for our frailty? Tiber Septim held out his arms, and wordlessly, Barenziah stepped. Wait, what? That is a way to end a story. Okay then. Barenziah stepped. The end. That's like the worst way to ever have a story. I'm clicking the next page. It doesn't go any further than this. This is how it ends. Yeah. Daggerfall, ain't it brilliant? Yeah, absolutely brilliant. Oh, look at that. I'm disconnecting too from the internet. Oh, ain't that just brilliant? Everything's just happy-dory, ain't it? It's just peachy. It's just bloody peachy. Let's see, if I do that, there we are. Now I got internet access again. Hopefully that will keep internet access. Watch as it disconnects again. I think usually after I do this it works. Not sure. But yeah. Can't go to the next page. There is no other page. Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Okay. So that's page 5. Well, book 5, should I say. And that's therefore the halfway point of this book. There you are. Part 5. Now I can scroll slightly easier. Let's see here, what do we have? Where's part 6? Okay, part 6. You dance on the edge of a volcano, child, Drolane scolded, as admired the emerald ring her lover had given to her to celebrate their 1-month anniversary. How so? We make one another happy. We harm no one. Symmachus bade me to be discriminate and discreet. Who better can I choose? And we've been most discreet. He treats me as a daughter in public. Tiber Septim's nightly visits were made through a secret passage. Well then, so apparently Tiber Septim has had relations with Barenziah here. He slavers over you like a dog his dinner. Have you not noticed the coolness of the Empress and her son toward you? Barenziah shrugged. Even before she and Septim had become lovers, she'd had no more from his family than bare civility. Threadbare civility. What matter? It's Tiber who holds power. It is his son who holds the future. Do not hold his mother up to public scorn, I beg you. Can I help it if that dry stick of a woman cannot hold her husband's interest even in conversation at dinner? Have less to say in public. That is all I ask. She matters little, save that her children love her, and you do not want them as enemies. Tiber Septim has not long to live. I mean, Drolane amended quickly at Barenziah's scowl. Humans are all short-lived, temporary, as we all say. They come and go as the seasons do, but the families of the most powerful live on for a time. You must be a family friend if you would see lasting. Make you truly see. Yet, who are so young and human-bred as well? If you take care, you and Mournhold are like to live as to see the fall of the Septim's dynasty, if indeed he has founded one, as you have seen its rise. Is a way of human history. They ebb and flow like the tides. Their cities and even their empires bloom like spring flowers, only to wither and die in the summer sun. Barenziah just laughed. She knew that rumors abounded about her and Tiber Septim. She enjoyed the attention for all, save the Empress and her son seemed captivated by her. Bards sang of her dark beauty and her charming ways. She was in fashion and in love, and it was temporary, well, what was not? She was happy for the first time she could remember, each day filled with joy and pleasure, and the nights yet better. What is wrong with me? Barenziah lamented. Look, not one of my skirts fits, and what's become of my waist? Am I getting fat? Barenziah regarded her thin arms and legs, and her undeniably thickened waist in the mirror with displeasure. Drolane shrugged. You appear to be a child, young as you are. Constant parent to a human has brought you early to fertility. I see no choice but for you to speak with him about it. You are in his power. It would be best, I think, for you to go directly to Mournhold if he will agree, and bear the child there. Alone? Barenziah placed her hands on her swollen belly, tears forming in her eyes. Everything in her yearned to share the fruit of her love with a lover. We'll never agree to that. He won't be parted from me now. You'll see. Drolane shook her gray head. Although she said no more, a look of sympathy and sorrow had replaced her usual cool scorn. That night Barenziah told Tiber Septim of it when he came to her. With child? He looked shocked, stunned. You sure of it? I was told elves do not bear so young. Barenziah summoned a smile. How can I be sure? I'll fetch my healer. The healer, a high elf of middle years, confirmed that Barenziah was indeed pregnant and that such a thing had never before been known to happen. It was testimony to His Excellency's potency, the healer said mockingly. Tiber Septim snarled at him. This must not be, he said. Undo it! Sire, the healer gaped at him. I cannot! Of course you can, he snapped. I command you to do so! Barenziah, wide-eyed with sudden terror, sat up in the bed. No, she screamed. No, what are you saying? My dear child. Tiber Septim sat down beside her with his winning smile. I'm so sorry, truly. But this cannot be. Your child could be a threat to my son and his sons. I will put it no more plainly than that. The child I bear is your child, she wailed. No, it's a possibility. A might be. Not yet gifted with a soul, or quickened in the life. I will not have its soul. He gave the healer another hard stare, and the elf began to tremble. It is her child. Children are few among elves. No woman conceives more than 4, and that is very rare. 2 is the allotted number. Some bear none. Some only 1. If I take this one from her, she may not conceive again. You told me she would not bear to me. I've little faith in your precognitions. Barenziah scrambled naked from her bed and ran for the door, not knowing where she was going, only that she could not stay. She never reached the door, for blackness took her. Barenziah awoke to pain and emptiness. Adrenaline was there to soothe the pain and clean the blood that pooled between her legs, but there was nothing to fill the emptiness. Tiber Septim sent gifts and flowers, and came for short visits, always well attended. Barenziah received these visits with pleasure, but he came no more at night, nor did she wish for him. After a week, when she was physically recovered, it was announced that Symmachus had requested she come to Mournhold earlier than planned, and that she would leave forthwith. She was given a splendid retinue, a wardrobe befitting a queen, and a ceremonial departure from the gates of Imperial City. And that's part 6. Also, if I connect it back up, hooray! Actually worked. That's good. We're making progress. Okay, you guy who's shrugging your hand and hold on to a sack of money at all times. You are read the book? I bet you do. You look like the type of seedy person who would want a book. I don't know what you do with them. Turn the page. Wash your hands. Turn the page. Wash your hands. I don't want to know. Okay, let's get back to reading. We're reading part 7. Turn the page. Wash your hands. Everything I have ever loved, I have lost, Barenziah thought, looking over the mountain knights behind and ahead, the tired woman near her in a carriage. Well, at least we're getting there. Progress! 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 Okay, we're doing good. I just want to make sure of everything. Yet I have gained a measure of wealth and power, and the promise of more to come. Dearly I have bought it. Now I do better understand Tiber Septim's love of it. If he oft paid such prices, for surely worth is measured by the price one pays. Barenziah, by her wish, rode mounted on a shining black mare, clad as a warrior, and shining chainmail of dark elf making. As the slow days slipped by, and the train rode a winding road eastward into the setting sun, around her rose the steep-sided mountain slopes of Morrowind. The air was thin, and a chill late autumn wind blew constantly, but it was also rich with the sweet spice smell of the late blooming black rose, which grew in every shadowy nook and crevice, finding nourishment even in the stoniest slopes. In small villages and towns, ragged dark elf folk gathered along the road to cry her name or simply gape. Most of her nightly escort were red guards, with a few dark elves, Nords and Bretons scattered among them. As they wove their way into the heart of Morrowind, these grew increasingly uncomfortable and clung together. Even the dark elf knight seemed somewhat uneasy. Barenziah felt at home. felt the welcome extended to her by this land. Symmachus met her with the Mournhard borders with an escort of knights, about half of whom were dark elf in imperial battle dress, she noted. There was a grand parade in the city, and speeches of welcome from elders. "I've had the Queen's suite refurbished for you," he said, "but you can change anything not to your taste, of course." He went on about details of the coronation ceremony, which was to be held in a week. It was his old commanding self, but she sensed something else as well. He was eager for her approval of the arrangements. He asked her nothing about her stay in the imperial city or Tiber Septim, although Barenziah was certain that Drolane had told him everything in detail. The ceremony itself, like so much else, was a mixture of old and new, parts of it dictated by imperial format, as she was sworn to service of the Empire in Tiber Septim, as well as the land of Mournhold and its people. She then accepted fealty from the people and the council. The council was composed of a mixture of imperial representatives, advisors they were called, and native representatives of the people. These lectors were mostly elders, in accordance with elven custom. Barenziah found that most of her time was occupied in attempting to reconcile these two forces, and the elders were expected to do most of the reconciling in the name of the reforms introduced by the Empire, such as land ownership and surface farming, which went clean against dark elven tradition, as laid down by the ancient gods and goddesses. Now, Tiber Septim, in the name of the One, had decreed a new tradition, and the gods and goddesses themselves were expected to obey. Barenziah threw herself into work and study. She was through with love and men for a long, long time, if not forever. There were other pleasures, she discovered, as Symmachus had promised, those of the mind, of power. She developed a love for dark elf history and legend, a hunger to know the people from whom she sprang, proud warriors and craftsmen. Tiber Septim lived another half-century, then which she saw him on few occasions, as she was been to Imperial City for one reason or another. He greeted her with warmth on these occasions, and they had long talks together about events. He seemed to have quite forgotten that there had ever been anything more between them. He changed little over the years. Rumor said that the mages had found spells to extend his vitality, and even that the One had granted him immortality. Then one day a messenger came with the news that he was dead, and his son was now emperor in his place. They'd heard the news in private, she and Symmachus. He took it stoically, as he took everything. "It doesn't seem possible," Barenziah said. "I told you, it's the way of humans. They are a short-lived race. It doesn't really matter. His power lives on. His son now wields it." "You called him your friend. Do you feel nothing?" He shrugged. "There was a time when you called him somewhat more. What do you feel now, Barenziah?" "Emptiness. Loneliness," she said. Then she too shrugged. "That's not new." "I know," he said. "Take your hand." "Barenziah, let me try to fill that lonely place." He turned her face up and kissed her. It filled her with astonishment. She couldn't remember his ever touching her before. She never thought of him in that way, and yet undeniably, an old familiar warmth spread through her. She'd forgotten how good it was, that warmth. Not the burning heat she felt with Tiber Septim, but the warmth she'd associated with Straw. Straw. Poor Straw. She hadn't thought of him in so long. He'd be middle-aged now if he still lived. Probably married to a dozen children. Married to a dozen children, she hoped. And a wife who could talk for two. "Marry me, Barenziah," he was saying. "I've worked and toiled and waited long enough, haven't I?" Marriage. A peasant with peasant dreams. The words appeared in her mind, as if from long ago. And yet, why not? If not him, who? The great noble families had been destroyed in the war and its aftermath. Dark Elf rule had been restored, but not the old nobility. Most of them were upstarts, like Symmachus, and not as good as he was. He fought to keep Mournhold whole and healthy, while their so-called advisors would have picked their bones, sucked them dry as Ebonheart had been sucked dry. He fought for Mournhold, fought for her, while she in it grew. She felt a sudden rush of gratitude, and, undeniably, affection. He was steady and reliable. He'd served her well. Why not? She said, smiling. The union was a good one, both in its political and personal aspects. While Tiber Septim's son viewed it with a jaundiced eye, his trust in his father's old friend was absolute. Symmachus, however, was still viewed with suspicion by Morrowind's stiff-necked folk, suspicious of his peasant ancestry, his close ties to the Empire, while she was quite popular. The lady's one of our own in our heart, it was whispered, held captive as we are. Barenziah felt content. There was work and pleasure, and what more could one ask of life? The years passed swiftly, with crises to be dealt with, storms and famines and pleasures and successes and plots to be foiled. Mournhold prospered well enough. Her people were secure and fed, her mines and farms productive. All was well, save that the marriage produced no children, no heirs. Now elven children are slow to come, and most demanded their welcome. Noble children more so than others. Thus many decades have passed before they grew concerned. The fault lies with me, husband. I am damaged goods, Barenziah said bitterly. If you want to take another... I want no other, Symmachus snapped. Nor do I know the faults to be thine. Perhaps it is mine. Whichever, we will seek a cure. If there is damage, surely it may be repaired. How so? When we dare not trust anyone with my true story? It won't matter if we change the time and circumstances a bit. Whatever we say or fail to say, Japhia never rests. His inventive mind and quick tongue are ever busy spreading gossip and rumor. Priests and healers came and went, but all their prayers, potions, and other efforts produced not even a period of bloom, let alone a single fruit. Eventually they put it from their mind and left it in the gods' hands. They were yet young, with centuries ahead for them. There was time. Elves always have time. And so that's part 7. Amazing. Just looking at all this beautiful, beautiful progress. Hey dude, random dude, I need to sell you a book. First book right on the shelf. So nice having like a mostly full list. Like we have a few books here, but not many. Yeah, we have like 3 books for me and because 8, 9, 10. Okie dokie, so let's read 8. I can find 8. I think it's the last one. Nope, this one. And also then this whole time I've been carrying 2 letters. You see, it's that same letter from the very beginning. And Abaki. You know what happened to the one about the Dark Brotherhood? Oopsie. I'm gonna have to find... I think I accidentally got rid of the letter. I probably did. I'll have to look up that one too then. Like look at my old videos and see where it said. I did look at the note. Let's see here. Barenziah! Let's actually make sure, as usual. The start of this stuff. Oh look at that. Reconnect in 31 seconds. Can we catch it? Probably not. Gotta love this instability. As you see, it's so random. It's absolutely driving me nuts. Come on. It should catch it. We just got internet again. It's going to reconnect now. Reconnect successful! Alright. I really don't think it matters, but sure. There we are. That way you guys can see a stream of people reading terrible stuff. Barenziah sat in the hall at dinner, pushing her food about her plate, feeling bored and restless. Symmachus was away, having been summoned to Imperial City by Tiber Septim's great-great-grandson, Uriel Septim. Or was it his great-great-great-grandson? She'd lost count, she realized. Their faces seemed to blur into one another. Perhaps she should have gone with him. But there'd been the delegation from Tyr, or a tiresome matter that required delicate handling. A bard was singing, but Barenziah hadn't been listening. Lately all the songs seemed the same to her, whether new or old. Now a turn of phrase caught her attention. He was singing of freedom, of adventure, of freeing Morrowind from its chains. How dare he? Barenziah sat up straight and turned to glare at him, and worse. Then he realized that he was singing of some ancient war with Skyrim Nords, praising the heroicism of King Morrowind and his brave companions. The tale was old enough, yet the song was new. And the meaning. Barenziah wasn't sure. A bold fellow, but with a good voice and ear for poetry and music. Rather handsome too, in a raffish way. He didn't look exactly prosperous, nor was he all that young. Certainly he wasn't under a century of age. Why hadn't she heard of him before, or at least heard of him? Who is he? She whispered to her dinner companion, who shrugged and said, calls himself Nightingale. No one seems to know anything about him. Let him speak with me when he has done. Nightingale came to her, thanked her for the honor and the purse she handed him. His manner wasn't bold, rather quiet and unassuming. He was quick enough with gossip about others, but she learned nothing about him, for he turned all questions away with a joke in answer or a wild tale, yet one given so charmingly that it was impossible to take offense. My true name? My lady, I am no one. No, my parents named me No One. Or was it Nobody? What does it matter? How can parents give name to that which they do not know? Ah, I believe it was the name. No, not. I have been Nightingale for so long, I do not remember. Oh, since last month at the very least. Or was it last week? All my memory goes into song and tales, you see. I've none left for myself. I'm really quite boring. Where was I born? Why, Northwhere. I plan to settle in Dornamon when I get there, but I'm in no hurry. I see. And will you then marry Elisor? Quite perceptive of you, my lady. Perhaps. Although I find Denise quite charming too at times. Ah, you are fickle then. Like the wind, my lady. I blow hither and yon, and hot and cold. Stay with us a while then, if you will. As you wish, my lady. Barenziah found her interest in life rekindled. All that had seemed stale seemed fresh and new again. She greeted each day with zest, looking forward to conversation and song with Nightingale. Unlike other bards, he never sang her praises, nor other woman's, but only of high adventure or bold deeds. When she asked him about this, he merely said, what greater praise of thy chime couldst thou ask, than what thy own mirror gives thee? And if words thou wouldst have, thou hadst those of the greatest bards of the land. How should I vie with them? I who was born but a week gone by. But once they spoke privately, to Barenziah, unable to sleep, had bid him come to her chamber, so that his music might soothe her. Thou art lazy and a coward, else I hold no chime for thee. My lady, to praise thee I must know thee, and thy spirit is wrapped in a cloud of enchantment. Not so. 'Tis thy words that weave enchantment, and thy eyes. Know me if thou wilt, if thou darest. He came to her. They lay close, kissed and embraced. Not even Barenziah truly knows herself, he whispered softly. How can I? Barenziah, thou seekest to know it not, nor yet for what. What would you have that you have not? Passion, she whispered. Passion, and children born of it. And for thy children, what? What birthright will you give them? Freedom, she whispered. Freedom to be what they are. Freedom, where can I find these things? They lie beside you, and beneath you if you dare stretch out your hand to take them. But Symmachus, I tell you, in me lies the answer to part your quest, and below us in these very minds lies that which will grant us the power to achieve it. That which Merlin and Edward between them used to free High Rock from Nord domination of their spirit. Properly used, none can stand against it, not even that power which the Emperor controls. Freedom, Barenziah. Freedom from the chains that bind you. Think on it, Barenziah. He kissed her again, softly, and withdrew. You're not going, she cried out, for her body yearned for him. For now, he said. Pleasures of the flesh are nothing beside what we have together. I would have you think on it. I don't need to think. What must we do? What preparation must we make? Why, none. You can enter the mines freely. Once below, I can guide you to where this thing lies, and lift it from its resting place. The horn of Silmane, she whispered. Is it true? How do you know? 'Tis said it's buried neath Daggerfall itself. Nay, long have I studied this matter. Ere his death, King Edward gave the horn for his safekeeping into the hand of his old friend, King Merlin, who secreted it here in Mournhold, under the guardianship of the god Ethan, whose birthplace this is. Now thou knowest what it hath cost me long years and weary miles to learn. But the god, trust me, dear heart, all will be well. Laughing, he blew her a last kiss, and was gone. On the morrow, they passed the guards at the great doors that led below. Barenziah made her usual tour of inspection, but instead of leaving afterwards, she and Nightingale entered a long sealed door that led to an ancient part of the workings, long abandoned. The going was treacherous, for some of the old passages had collapsed, and they had to clear a passage or find a way around. Vicious rats and huge spiders scurried here and there and sometimes attacked them. We've been gone too long, Barenziah said. They'll be looking for us. What will I tell them? Whatever you please, Nightingale laughed. You're the queen, aren't you? Symmachus. That peasant obeys whoever holds power. Always has. Always will. We shall hold the power, love. His lips were the sweetest wine, every touch of fire and lightning. Now, she said, take me now. I'm ready. Her body seemed to hum, every nerve and muscle taut. Not yet. Not here. Not like this. He waved around at the ancient dusty rubble and grim rock walls. Just a little longer. Here, he said at last, pausing before a blank wall. Here it lies. His hands wove a spell, and the wall dissolved to reveal the entrance to an ancient shrine. In the midst stood a statue of the god, hammer in hand, poised above an adamantium anvil. By my blood, Ethan, I bid you wake. Merlin's heir of ebon heart am I, last of the royal kin, sharer of thy blood. At Merlin's last need, with all elvendom and peril of their souls, release to me what thou guardest. Now do I bid thee strike. At his words, the statue stirred and quickened. And the blank... Come on, quick. Let's see here. Wait, sensitivity. Stone eyes glowed red. The massive head nodded, and the hammer smote the anvil, which split asunder with a thunderous crash, and the stone god himself crumbled. Barenziah clapped her hands over her ears and crouched down, crying aloud. Nightingale strode boldly forward and crossed what lay among the ruins for the cry of ecstasy, lifting it high. Someone's coming! Barenziah cried. Wait! That's not the horn! It's a staff! Indeed, my Thea. You see truly at last. Nightingale laughed aloud then. I'm sorry, my darling, that I must leave you now. Perhaps we'll meet again one day. Until then. Until then. Symmachus, he said to the mail-clad figure, who appeared behind them. She's yours. No! Barenziah sprang out and ran toward him. But he was gone, winked of existence, just as Symmachus, sword drawn, reached him. His blade cleaved a single stroke through empty air. Then he stood as still as if he'd taken the stone god's place. Barenziah said nothing. Nothing. Symmachus told the half-dozen elves who accompanied him to say only that Nightingale and the Queen had lost their way, and had been set upon by spiders. Nightingale had fallen into a deep crevice that closed upon him. His body could not be recovered. The Queen had been badly shaken by the encounter, and deeply mourned the loss of the friend, who had fallen in her defense. Such was his power of command that the slack-jawed soldiers, none of whom had caught more than a glimpse of the event, were half convinced that it was true. Barenziah was escorted above, and taken to a chamber, where she dismissed her servants, and sat stunned, too shaken even to weep. Symmachus stood watching her. Do you have any idea what you've done? He said finally. You should have told me, Barenziah whispered. The staff of unity and chaos. I never dreamed it lay there. He said. A yell and moan escaped her lips, and she doubled over in agony. What have I done? What now? What's to become of me? You loved him? Yes. Oh, may the gods have mercy on me. I did love him. Symmachus' hard-lined face softened slightly, and his eyes glimmered with a new light, as he sighed softly. That's something then. You'll become a mother if it's within my power. As for the rest, my dear, I expect you have loosed a storm upon the land. It'll be a while yet in the brewing. When it comes, we'll weather it together. He stripped her clothing from her, and carried her to the bed. Out in grief and longing, her body responded to his as never before, pouring forth all that Nightingale had awoken in her. She was emptied and then filled, for a child was planted and grew within her. As the babe grew in her womb, so did the feeling for patient, faithful Symmachus, rooted in long friendship and affection, doubtless ripened into a fullness of true love. 8 years later, their love was blessed again, with a little daughter. So, yeah. Directly after Nightingale's staff to the staff, Symmachus had sent secret messages to Uriel Septim of the matter, but had not gone himself, choosing rather to stay with Barenziah during the fertile period, and father a child upon her. For this, and for the theft, he suffered Uriel Septim's disfavor and suspicion. Spies were sent in search of the thief, but Nightingale seemed to have vanished whence he'd come, wherever that was. Didn't we read in, the other story that, that the guy who stole the Staff of Chaos was Jagar Tharn himself or so disguised? Yeah, wait a minute, was this Jagar Tharn? Is that what they were saying here? Sounds like it. So, Barenziah nearly fell for Jagar Tharn. Well then, that's gotta stink. You were a fool to have loved me, and now you've paid the ultimate price. Even now my servants have come to snatch you from this and bring you a mortal husk. Why? I don't really know, but I got the Staff of Chaos. Yes, for some reason. So yeah, apparently, basically, Barenziah basically caused the entire plot of Arena to happen. So, if you're wondering who to blame for all that chaos, point all fingers to Barenziah, that famous person we met before. Yep, it's all her fault. All her bloody fault. That's the lesson here. Barenziah messed up everything. Everything. All this murder, all this death, all this pointless wandering in Elf 16 or so pointless dungeons. It was all due to Barenziah. Why did you do this, Barenziah? Why on earth did you love a random bard that walked into your house? And why did you take him to steal some random thing from the mines? Dark elf. In part, perhaps, said Barenziah. But part human too, I think. In disguise. Also, we have not come so quickly to fertility. Part dark elf is Shoah, of ancient Rhythm lineage. Else he could have not freed the staff. Wait, what? 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 Pouring froth. I thought Symmachus was the one who had the child. Wait, is this Symmachus' child, or did Jagar Tharn actually have a child with Barenziah? Is that what they're implying? That would be interesting. You were a fool to suffer thee, and now you pay the ultimate price. Even now, the servants come to fetch you, for you turns out you're pregnant with my random child. And in 10 years' time, I shall... That was all part of his major plan, apparently. The major plan they didn't do anything for. But yeah, I have no idea what he was doing. I have no idea. Symmachus reason. And I think he would have lain with thee. As elf, he did not dare. But then he would have not been able to part with thee. He knew the staff lay there, not the horn, and that he must teleport to safety, for the staff is not a weapon that would have seen him clear, unlike the horn. Praise the gods that he hath not that. It seems all was as he expected. Yet how did he know? I placed it there myself, with the aid of the ragtail end of the Ratham clan, who now sits king in Ebonheart, as a reward. So wait, so she says Symmachus is Dark Elf and he talks about Jagar Tharn? I'm confused. Or did she come to fertility because of the bard? I don't get this. How do you attribute that to that? Yeah. And the Ratham clan, who now sits in the Ebonheart of his reward. Time is up to claim the horn, but left the staff for safekeeping. Nightingale can use the staff to sow seeds of strife and dissension if he wishes. Yet that alone will not give him power. That lies with the horn and the ability to use it. I'm not so sure it's power that Nightingale seeks, Barenziah said. Yeah, I don't think Jagar Tharn was seeking power. Nope. I'll seek power, Symmachus retorted. Each are in our own way. I have found what I sought, Barenziah said. About time. You sought Jagar Tharn destroy the world? Good job, I'm proud of you. You were a fool. Okay, let's sell this one. Because now we have 2 books. Part 9 and Part 10. Okay, Part 9 right here, conveniently for a reading experience. Just look at that. That was easy enough to look at. Nice, pretty book. As Symmachus had predicted, the theft of the Staff of Chaos had few short-term consequences. The current Emperor, Uriel Septim, sent some rather stiff messages expressing shock and displeasure at the staff's disappearance, and urging that Symmachus make every effort to locate its whereabouts, and communicate this to the newly appointed Imperial Battle Mage Jagar Tharn, in whose hands the matter had been placed. Tharn! Symmachus snarled in disgust and frustration, as he paced about the small chamber where Barenziah, now some months present, was sitting serenely, knit in a baby blanket. Jagar Tharn, indeed. I would give him directions for crossing the street. What have you against this person, husband? I just don't trust that mongrel elf. Part wood elf, part dark elf, and part only the gods know what. All the worst qualities of all his combined races. No one knows much about him. Claims he was born in Valenwood, of a wood elf mother. Seems to have been everywhere since. Barenziah, sunk in contentment of this pregnancy, had only been humoring Symmachus thus far, but this piqued her interest. Nightingale? Could this have been Jagar Tharn disguised? Nay, human blood seems to be the one missing component in Tharn's ancestry. To Symmachus, Barenziah knew, that was a flaw. Symmachus despised wood elves as lazy thieves, and high elves as ineffectual intellectuals, but he admired humans, especially Bretons, for their combination of pragmatism, intelligence, and energy. Nightingales of Ebonheart, of the house Mara, I'll be bound. That house had human blood in her since her time. Ebonheart was jealous that the staff was laid there when Tiber Septim took the horn from us. Barenziah sighed a little. The rivalry between Ebonheart and Mournhold reached back almost to the dawn of history. Once the two had been won, all the mines within held by Clan Ratham, whose royal house held the high kinship of Morrowind. Ebonheart had split into two separate states, Ebonheart and Mournhold, when Queen Leanne's twin sons, Marlene's grandsons, had been left as the heirs. And we saw Ebonheart in Morrowind, Ebonheart in Arena when we went to, it's in Morrowind, but it's in Arena because we were going after the final piece of Staff of Chaos, Jagar Tharn, and that's like the main city for that one. I remember it being like near the peak of the volcano. And that was where we found the Abe Dai Katana. At the same time, the office of High King had been vacated in favor of a temporary war leader, to be named by a council in times of provincial emergency. Still, Ebonheart remained jealous of her prerogatives as the eldest city-state of Morrowind. Still first among equals, and claimed that guardianship over the horn should rightfully be entrusted to the elder, Mournhold responded that Morrowind himself had placed the horn in the keeping of the god Ethan, and Mournhold was unarguably the god's birthplace. Why not tell Jagar Tharn his suspicions then? Let him recover the thing. As long as it's safe, what does it matter where it lies? Symmachus stared at her without comprehension. It matters, he said softly. But not that much, he added. Certainly not enough for you to concern yourself further over it. You just tend to your knitting. In a few more months, Barenziah produced a fine son, whom they named Helseth. Nothing more was heard of the staff or Nightingale. If Ebonheart held it, certainly they did not boast of it. The years passed swiftly and happily. Helseth grew tall and strong. He was much like his father, whom he worshipped. When Helseth was 8 years old, Barenziah bore a second child, a daughter, to Symmachus' great delight. Helseth was his pride, yet little Morgia held his heart. Shortly after Morgia's birth, word came that a plot against the Emperor had been amassed, and that the chief co-conspirators, Jagar Tharn and Ria Silmane, were dead. Symmachus rejoiced at this news. I told you so, he crowed. Yet thereafter, relations with the Empire slowly deteriorated, for no apparent reason. Yeah, I wonder why. Taxes were raised, and quotas increased with each passing year. Symmachus felt that the Emperor suspected him of having a hand in the plot, and sought to prove his loyalty by making every effort to comply with the increasing demands. He lengthened working hours, and raised taxes, and even made up some of the difference from both crown funds and their own private holdings. Yet the demands increased, and commoners and nobles alike grew restless. Jagar Tharn's plot as emperor. Take the throne. Touch people. Profit. Apparently, I have no idea how on earth touching people did anything good. It seems like, it was like, let's just keep demanding for the people. They're not gonna uprise against me. No way. They'll be a fool if they uprise me, and they'll pay the ultimate price. I want you to take the children and journey yourself to Imperial City. Symmachus at last in desperation. You must make the Emperor listen, else all Mournhold will be in revolt come spring. You have a way with men. You always did. He forced a smile. Barenziah forced a smile of her own. Even you. Yes, even me, he said dully. Both children? Barenziah looked over toward the corner windows, where Helseth was strumming a lute and singing a duet with his little sister. Helseth was 15, Morgia just 8. Perhaps still soft in his heart. Besides, it's time that Helseth was presented at the Imperial Court. Perhaps, but that's not your true reason. You do not think you can keep them safe here. If that's the case, then you're not safe here either. Come with us, Barenziah urged. He took her hands in his. Barenziah, love, harden my heart. If I leave now, there'll be nothing for us to return to. I'll be alright. I can take care of myself, and I can do it better if I need not fear for you or our children. Barenziah laid her head against his chest. Just remember that we need you. We can do without the rest if we have each other. Empty hands and empty bellies are easier to bear than an empty heart. My foolishness has brought us to this pass. If so, 'tis not that so a place to be. His eyes rested fondly on their carefree children. And none of us shall go without. I cost you everything once, Barenziah. I and Tiber Septim. Without my aid, the Septim dynasty would never have begun. I helped its rise. I can bring about its fall. You may tell Ria Septim that, and that my patience is bounded. Barenziah gasped. Symmachus was not given to empty threats. She no more imagined that he would ever turn against the Emperor than that the old house wolf, lying by the hearth, would turn on her. How? She demanded, but he shook his head. That's it that you don't know, he said. Just tell him not. If he's proved irreconciled, and do not fear. He's Septim enough that he will not kill the messengers. The late winter journey to Imperial City was an easy one. One of the things the Septim Empire had accomplished was the building and maintenance of good highways throughout Tamriel. Barenziah stood before the Emperor's throne, explaining Mournhold's straits. She'd waited weeks for an audience with Ria Septim, fobbed off one protest or another. His Excellency is indisposed. An urgent matter demands his attention. I'm sorry, Your Highness. There must be some mistake. Your appointment is for next week. No, see. And now it was not going so well. He did not even seem to be listening to her. He hadn't invited her to sit, nor had he dismissed the children. Helseth stood still as a carved statue. For little Morgia had begun to fidget. He had first greeted the three of them with a too bright smile of her welcome that did not reach his eyes. Then, as she presented her children, he had gazed at them with a fixed attention that was real, yet inappropriate. Barenziah had been dealing with humans for nearly 500 years now, and had developed skill at reading their expressions and movement that was far beyond that any human ever learned. Try as the Emperor might to conceal it, there was a hunger in his eyes, and something more. Regret. Why? He had several fine children of his own. Why covet hers? And why look at her with the intense, though brief yearning? Ah well, perhaps he was tired of his lady, Humans were fickle-minded, but after that one long, burning glance, his gaze had shifted away as she began to speak of her mission, and he sat still as stone. "You were a fool to throw away my lab, and now you pay the ultimate price!" Puzzled, Barenziah stared into the pale, set face, looking for some trace of the Septum she'd known. She had known Uriel Septum well, having met him only once when he was still a child, and then his coronation 20 years before. He'd been stern and dignified then, not isolated remote as this man was. Despite the physical resemblance, he didn't seem to be the same man at all. Not the same. Yet something about him was familiar to her. More familiar than it should it be. Some trick of posture or gesture. Suddenly she felt very warm, as if lava had been poured over her. Illusion. She had studied well the arts of illusion since Nightingale had fooled her so boldly. She had learned to detect it, and she felt it now, as certainly as a blind man could feel the sun on his face. Illusion? But why? Her mind worked furiously, even as her mouth went on reciting details about the Mournhold economy. Vanity? Humans were oft as ashamed of the signs of age as elves were proud of them. Yet the face of Uriel Septum wore seemed consistent with his age. Barenziah dared use none of her magic arts. Even petty nobles had means of detecting, if not shielding themselves from these in their halls. The use of magic here would bring down his wrath, as surely as drawing a knife would. Magic. Illusion. Suddenly she thought of Nightingale, and briefly he sat before her, only saddened, trapped. And then that vision faded, and another man sat there, like Nightingale and yet unlike. Pale skin, red eyes, and elven ears, about him a fierce glow of concentration, an aura of energy, a shrink in horror. This man was capable of anything! And then, once again she beheld the face of Uriel Septum. How could she be sure she wasn't... Imagine things. Perhaps her mind was playing tricks on her. She'd felt a sudden vast weariness, as if she'd been carrying a heavy burden too long and too far. Do you remember, Excellency? Symmachus and I had dinner with your family shortly after your father's coronation. You are no older than little Morgia here. We were greatly honored to be the only guests that evening, except for your best friend Justin, of course. Ah, yes, the Emperor said. I believe I do recall that. You and Justin were such great friends. I was told he died not long after. A great pity. Indeed, I do not like to speak of him. His eyes were wary. As for your request, my lady, we shall take you under advisement and let you know. Barenziah bowed, as did her children. A nod dismissed them, and they backed away from the presence. Barenziah took a deep breath. Justin had been an imaginary friend. Although Uriel had insisted that a place be set for Justin at every meal. Not only that, Justin had been a girl, despite the boy name. Symmachus had kept up the family joke long after Justin had gone wherever such childhood friends go, and querying seriously after Justin's well-being whenever he and Uriel Septum met, and being responded to as seriously. Celeste Barenziah, an adventurous youth, had married a high elf and settled in Lilendril. The man occupying the Emperor's chair was not Uriel Septum, Nightingale. A chord of recognition ran through her, and Barenziah knew that she was right. It was he, indeed. Symmachus had been wrong. So wrong. What now, she wondered. What had become of Uriel Septum? And more to the point, what did it mean for her and Symmachus and Mournhold? Thinking back, Barenziah guessed that their troubles were due to this false emperor, Nightingale, or whoever he really was. He must have taken Uriel Septum's place shortly before the unreasonable demands on Mournhold had begun. This would explain why reactions had deteriorated so long, as humans judge time, after her offense. Nightingale knew of Symmachus' famed loyalty to, and knowledge of, the Septons, and was making a preemptive strike. If that were indeed the case, they were all in terrible danger. She and the children were under his hand here in the Imperial City, and Symmachus left alone to face the troubles of Nightingale's brewing. What must she do? Barenziah urged the children ahead of her, a hand on each shoulder, her woman servant and guards trailing behind. They had reached their waiting carriage, even though their apartment was only a few blocks from the palace. Royal dignity forbade their walking, and for once, Barenziah was glad of that. Even the carriage seemed a kind of sanctuary now, false as she knew that feeling to be. A boy dashed up to one of the guards and handed him a letter, then pointed towards the carriage. The guard brought it to her. The boy waited, eyes wide. The letter was brief and complimentary, and simply asked if King Iridir of Wayrest, High Rock, might be granted an audience with her, as he had heard much of her, and would be pleased to make her acquaintance. Barenziah's first impulse was to refuse. She wanted only to leave the city. Certainly she had no inclination for any dalliances with a dazzled human. She looked up frowning, and one of the guards said, "The boy says his master awaits your reply yonder." She looked in the direction indicated, and saw a handsome elderly man on horseback, surrounded by a half-dozen courtiers and guards. He caught her eye and bowed respectively, removing his plumed hat. "Very well," Barenziah said to the boy, on impulse. "Tell your master he may call on me tonight, after the dinner hour." The man looked polite and grave, and rather worried, but not in the least lovesick. And with that in mind, we are now ready for the final part. But first we need to sell this one random book. Okie dokie. One book done, one book to go. Let me guess, the final part's going to be really, really long. But just look at the gloriousness of all the space. I could get used to space like this again. And the fact that we can sell any book we pick up now. Barenziah stood in the open tower window, waiting. She could sense her familiar's nearness, but though the night sky was clear as day, to her eyes she could not see him. Then, such more minutes and a great nighthawk was there, wings folded, talons reaching for a thick leather armband. She carried the bird to its perch, where it waited, panting, while impatient fingers felt for the message, secured in a capsule on one leg. It drank, then ruffled its feathers, and began to preen, secure in her presence. A tiny part of her consciousness shared its satisfaction with a job well done. Rest earned. Yet beneath that was an unease. Things were not right, even to its bird mind. Her fingers shook as she unfolded the thin sheet and pored over the sheet of cramped writing. Not Symmachus' bold hand. Barenziah sat, slowly, fingers smoothing the document while she prepared her mind and body to accept disaster calmly. The Imperial Guards had deserted Symmachus and joined the rebels. The loyal troops had suffered a decisive defeat. The rebel leader had been recognized as King of Morrowind by the Emperor. Symmachus was dead. Barenziah and the children had been declared traitors to the Empire, and a price set on their heads. "My lady," Barenziah jumped, startled at his servant's approach. "The Breton is here, King Iridir," the woman added helpfully, noting Barenziah's puzzlement. "Is there news, my lady?" she said, nodding at the Nighthawk. "Nothing that will not wait," Barenziah said quickly. "See to the bird." King Iridir greeted her gravely and courteously, if rather fulsome. Symmachus, who figured prominently in his family legends. I tell you, I hate the brokenness of these sometimes. That's one thing I'm not going to miss of Daggerfall books. All the broken tats. Like, how broken can the full man be? Gradually, he turned the conversation to her business with the Emperor. Finding her non-committal, he suddenly blurted out, "My Lady Queen, you must believe me. The man posing as the Emperor is an imposter. I know it sounds mad, but No, Barenziah said, with sudden decisiveness. You are correct. I know. Iridia relaxed back into his seat for the first time. Eyes shrewd. You know, you're not just human, a madman. My lady, we need your aid. Barenziah smiled grimly at the irony. Of what assistance might I be, my lord? Quickly he had outlined a plot. The Imperial sorceress Ria Silmane had been killed and declared a traitor by the false emperor. Yet she retained a bit of her power and could yet contact a few of those she had known well in the mortal plane. She had chosen a champion, also known as Ricky, the blundering maniac, who was completely pathetic, but regardless, who would undertake to assemble the missing staff pieces and use the staff's power to destroy Jagar Tharn. Or in that case, actually collected a bunch of useless sticks and turned out that was totally useless and ended up just kind of clicking an accidental button and destroying Tharn. You know, with him yelling, "Oh my god, Deus Ex Machina!" and melted his face off. That was really what happened, but we'll go with this. Who was otherwise invulnerable. No, he was invulnerable unless you touched that weird random thing. I don't even know what that thing was. And rescued the true Emperor, who was being held prisoner in another plane. However, their chosen champion languished now in the Imperial dungeons. Tharn's attention must now be diverted while he freed himself from Ria's health. Barenziah had Tharn's ear and eye. Could she provide the necessary distraction? I suppose I could obtain another audience with him. Would that be sufficient? What do you mean? His eye? Iridia looks uncomfortable. It was whispered among the servants that Jagar Tharn kept your likeliness in a sort of shrine in his chambers. That surprises you? Yes. And no. So Jagar Tharn has an obsessive love for Barenziah. Okay then. Our chosen one may need a few days to escape. I think it needed a few more than a few days. It took a really long time. You trust me in this? Why? We are desperate, my lady. We have no choice. But yes, I do trust you. Symmachus is dead, Barenziah explained quickly and coolly. My lady, what dreadful news! For the first time, Iridia's urbane poise was shaken. Under the circumstances, we can hardly ask, nay, my lord king. Under the circumstances, I must do what I may to avenge myself upon the murderer of my children's father. In return, I ask only that you protect my orphan children, as you may. Most willingly do I so pledge, most brave and noble lady. Old fool, Barenziah thought. She did not sleep that night, but sat in a chair beside the bed, hands folded in her lap, thinking long, deep thoughts. She would not tell the children, not yet, not until she must. She had no need to seek another audience with the Emperor, for a summons came in the morning. She told the children she expected... for a summons came in the morning. She told the children she expected to be gone a few days. Bade them give the servants no trouble and kissed them goodbye. Morgia whimpered a bit, but she was bored and lonely in Imperial City. Helseth looked dour but said nothing. It was very like his father. At the palace, Barenziah was escorted not into the great hall, but to a small parlor where the Emperor sat at a solitary breakfast. He nodded a greeting and waved his hand at the window. Splendid view, isn't it? You were a fool to have now passed out my advances, and now you pay the ultimate price. You get to see pretty views and not get them. Barenziah stared over at the tower's great city. It dawned on her that this was the very chamber where she first met Tiber Septim, and a strong wave of incontinent feeling swept over her. When she turned back at last, Uriel Septim had vanished, and Nightingale sat in his place, laughing. You knew, he said accusingly, scanning her face. I wanted to surprise you. You might at least pretend. Barenziah spread her arms. I'm afraid my skills at pretense are no match for yours, my liege. You're angry with me. He pretended to pout. Just a little, she said icily. I do find betrayal offensive. How human of you! What do you want of me? He wiped his mouth and stood erect. Now you are pretending! You know what I want of you, my love! You want to tantalize and torment me. Go ahead, I'm in your power. No, I don't want that at all, Barenziah. He came near, speaking low in an old caressing voice that sent shivers over her body. Don't you see? This was the only way! His hands closed on her arms. You could have taken me with you! Tears gathered in her eyes. He shook his head. I didn't have the power! But now I have it all! Mine to have, mine to share! With you! He waved his hand toward the window and the city beyond. I'll Tamriel to lay at your feet, and that's only the beginning! It's too late! Too late! You left me to him. He's dead! A scant few years, what does it matter? The children! I'll adopt them! We'll have others together, Barenziah! I have powers you do not dream of! He moved to kiss her, but she slipped his grasp and turned away. I don't believe you. You do, you know! You're still angry, that's all! His smile did not reach his eyes. What do you want? She shrugged. A walk in the garden. A song or two. You want to be courted? Why not? You do it so well. It's been so long since I've had the pleasure. And so they spent their days of courtship. Walking, talking, singing, and laughing together. While the Empire's business was left to the underlings. I'd like to see the staff, Barenziah said idly one day. I only had a glimpse of it. Nothing would give me greater pleasure, heart's delight, but that's impossible. You don't trust me, Barenziah pouted, but she softened her lips for his kiss. Nonsense, love. Isn't here. In fact, isn't anywhere. He laughed and kissed her again, softly. Now you're talking riddles again. Yeah, we got used to riddles, Arena. I want to see it. You can't have destroyed it. You've gained in wisdom since we last met. You piqued my interest somewhat. The staff cannot be destroyed and can't be removed from Tamriel, not without the direct consequences of the land itself. All true. And yet, as I said, it isn't anywhere. Can you solve the riddle? He pulled her to him, and she leaned into his embrace. Here's a greater riddle still, he whispered. How to make one of two? That I can, and will show you. Their bodies merged, limbs tangled together. Later, when they'd drawn a bit apart and dozed, she thought sleepily. One of two, two of one, three of two. What cannot be destroyed or banished might be split apart, perhaps. Nightingale kept a diary. Wait, why on earth does Jagar Tharn keep a diary? Seriously, dear diary! You were a fool to have been playing in plain sight, and now I shall stain you with a pen! Even now my servants of the Overlord come to write their own notes in this random diary! He scribbled entries in each night, after quick reports from his underlings. It was locked, but the lock was a simple one. Why did he keep any other mortal planes? He has the power to put things in other mortal planes, and he decides to put this right here in plain sight. Good job, Jagar Tharn, I'm proud of you. So Barenziah managed to sneak quick looks at it, while she occupied in toileting himself. She discovered that the first peace staff was hidden in an ancient dwarven mine called Fang Lair, although its location was given only in vague terms. The diary was crammed with jotted events in an odd shorthand. It was very hard to decipher. And so that's basically how we got all the information arena. We basically were being told by Barenziah, who passed on the Ria Silmane, who basically just kind of worded it for us. And Ria basically kind of said, I'm a freaky ghost, I can't help you. Good luck. I didn't really do anything myself besides talk to this person who did all the work for me. Even though I'm a ghost. And, you know. Yeah, I couldn't do much. I kind of could talk to you, though. You want someone to talk to? All Tamriel, she thought. In his hands and mine. And more, perhaps. And yet, for all his surface charm, there was a cold emptiness where his heart should have been. An emptiness of which he was quite unaware, she thought. One could glimpse it now, and then, where his eyes would go blank and hard. Peasant dreams, Barenziah thought, and straw flashed before her eyes, looking sad, and then Theris, with a mocking smile and empty eye sockets. Telemachus, who did what must be done, quietly and effectively. Nightingale, who would rule all and more, and yet chaos in the name of control. Barenziah got reluctant to leave from Nightingale to go to her children, who had to be told of their father's death and the Emperor's offer of his protection to them. Idria called on them while she was there, and she told them what she had discovered so far, and explained that she must remain a while yet and learn more as she could. Nightingale teased her about her elderly admirer. He was quite aware of Idria's suspicion, although, as he said, no one took the old fool seriously. Barenziah managed to arrange a reconciliation of sorts between them. Idria publicly recanted his suspicions, and his old friend forgave him. Thus he was invited to dine with them at least once a week. The children liked Idria, even Helseth, who disapproved of his mother's liaison with the Emperor, and consequently detested Nightingale. He had become surly and temperamental, and frequently quarreled with both of them. Idria was not happy either, and Nightingale delighted in publicly displaying his affection for Barenziah. They could not marry, of course, for Uriel Septim was already married. He had exiled the true Empress shortly after taking Septim's place, but had not dared to harm her. She was held by the Temple of the One. It had been given out publicly that she was in ill health, and rumors had been circulated that she had mental problems. Oh, okay, so, yep, the Queen of the Empress of the world of Tamriel has mental problems. Very important to know that fact. The Emperor's children had been dispatched to various prisons, disguised as schools. She'll grow worse in time, Nightingale said carelessly, eyeing Barenziah's swollen breast and belly with satisfaction. As for his children, well, life is full of hazards, isn't it? We'll be married. Your child will be my true heir. He did want the child. Barenziah was sure of that. She was far less sure of his feelings for her. They quarreled, often violently, usually about Helseth, who he wanted to send away to school. Barenziah made no effort to avoid these quarrels. Nightingale had no interest in a peaceful life, and he thoroughly enjoyed making up afterwards. Occasionally, Barenziah would take the children and retreat to their old apartment, declaring that she wanted no more to do with him. She was 6 months pregnant before she deciphered the location of the last staff piece. An easy one, since every dark elf knew where Jagar Tharn was. When next she quarreled with Nightingale, she simply left the city with Idria, and they rode hard for High Rock and Wayrest. Nightingale was furious, but there was little he could do. His assassins were rather inept, as we kinda saw, yeah. He did not leave his seat of power to pursue them in person, nor could he openly declare war on Wayrest. He had no legitimate claim on her unborn child. The nobility had disapproved of his liaison with Barenziah, and were glad she had gone. Wayrest was equally disapproving and distrustful of her, but either way was much beloved for his pretentious little city. by its prosperous little city, and allowances were readily made for its eccentricities. Barenziah and Ida Weir were married a year after the birth of her son by Jagar Tharn. Ida Weir doted on her. She did not love him, but she was fond of him, and that was something. It was nice to have someone, and Waywest was a very pleasant place. A good place for children to grow up, while they waited, and hoped, and prayed for their champion's success in his long mission. Wait a minute. There was a child of Jagar Tharn? Dun dun dun! Apparently there's more to the story. Yeah, basically they're saying that there's a child of Jagar Tharn. Why haven't you taken up this plotline? It's a very blatant plotline right here. This is kind of important. Jagar Tharn's child is in the world. And that's how it ends. On a bloody cliffhanger. We're gonna die, aren't we? Yeah. Anyway, that's all the bloody godforsaken books. It's been a long, enduring run, taken, I want to say, over 15, 16 parts. But we've done it. We have bloody done it. I don't know if I've achieved anything at all by doing it, but you know, it's a thing. I did something. Yeah. Not really sure if I did much, but yeah. At least I did something, and yeah, got to read a lot. And we got lots of random books, so now we don't have to worry about ever if we pick up a random book, like Part 10 of the Real Barenziah. We don't have to worry about it. We can say we've read every book and can sell every book for junk money. Basically, at this point, now we can build up finally a lot of money and finally get some random powerful sword to sell. Who knows, maybe we'll get another strike at the Ebony Daikatana. We need that thing. I just need to get like 30,000 gold on me. Yeah, I'm kind of a little bit low on funds right now because I've been buying all these books. But now that we are actually able to adventure again, we might actually make up some profits. You know, I think like that one dungeon had like 20,000 of the gold to sell. So yeah, it's not actually that bad. It just is a matter of, you know, wandering around aimlessly and picking up stuff. So yeah, I'm not sure exactly how fast I will be doing things. I gotta make sure to do Skorg Barrow. I remember that's the place that the Necromancer is. I actually looked at like one of my earlier videos and got that name. But now I have to remember where on earth the Hand Brotherhood is. Unless it just disappeared because it's been too late and they're impatient of me or something. Yeah, I probably should have gone there and said hi to them at least. They've been sitting at this inn for a really long time. But they didn't say anything about a time limit, so yeah. I feel ripped off. But alas. Anyway, with that in mind, I think it's been long enough. Thank you very much all for watching. I'm glad I'm finally through this. And I shall see you all next time.